Question of the day. What is your favorite roll and write?
That sounds good.
Boom. Question mark. That's it. There's a lot of them now. Back when these lists were first made of top 10 roll and writes, you had like 13 games to put on there. Now there's a roll and write for everything. There's go to work, the roll and write. There's eat food, the roll and write. There's harvest food, the roll and write. There's roll and write, the roll and write. Roll and write or something. I don't know. A lot of games out there. So what is your favorite roll and write? Because today we're taking a look at Vikings on the roll and write board. That's right. This is not Blood Rage, the roll and write, or Blood Rage, the travel game, like you'd get Monopoly with the little magnets when you were a child. This is Roll and Raid. It is a game in which you're pillaging and Vikinging and raiding and feasting and sacrificing your Vikings. It got really dark. To win points and win the game. So let's take a look at Roll and Raid. We'll come back up, talk final thoughts right now. All right, this is Roll and Raid. If you think this is a Viking roll and write, you would be correct. So here's the deal. You've got your raid cards up here. You've got your board paper right here. You've got the raid dice and then the Rego dice. That's it. Don't even need the box. Get out of here.
Excuse me, what are you doing?
On the beginning of your turn, or the turn, you're going to roll the dice. You're going to choose 2 of the 3 dice. Now, that's how roll and writes work, right? So let's just go through what you do with the dice. I'll go through each section, and I'll talk about the raid phase, and then I'll talk about these special sections here for when you can sacrifice your Vikings. Yes, lovely times. It's like that movie Midsummer, I think. Haven't seen it, because Hereditary looks too scary. See what I'm talking about? That little... Anyway, start up here. This is the resource production area. Now, you would think maybe, like a normal roll and write, you're going to cross off stuff with the number. No, you're not. You're not going to do that. You're going to count from that number. So let's say I take the yellow, well, let's start with brown. Take a 4 for brown. I would then count from the first open space. So 1, 2, 3, 4. Whatever you cross is what you get. So I would get a boat. I would come down here, and I would circle in a boat down here. So you get boats. You have to build them out from this central structure here, or this corner structure, and then when you touch these other dice, you'll open them up, and they give you a free dice, like a lot of roll and writes give you free dice to use. Same with the wood, same with the stone. Now the Vikings are different. So if you choose the yellow dice to use it here, you'll use this section just like you would. So it'd be 1, 2, 3, 4. You'll notice these sections are blank. We'll talk about how to fill those in a minute, but we would get a hut. So you would go down here, mark in a hut, and then once you open up the hut, you'll get these bonuses down here, which we'll talk about. Now, the second thing you can do with the yellow dice is you can just add Vikings. So you can take that as a 4 and start marking in Vikings here. Now, this is not as important about being adjacent because there are no bonuses for adjacency here. That's the main thing with production. Second thing you can do, a 4 or better of these dice, you can then get one of these bonuses. Now, these are instant and they're one-time use per lightning bolt. This one is always available. You can always cross this out. So what this means when you cross this out is you would put an X on your production area. Now you'd start counting from that X. So 4 here would be 1, 2, 3, 4. And you'll be able to get more things like that. That's what these bonuses do. This one will allow you to do it twice, one time. This one will allow you to draw in the symbol of your choice in these blank spots, further varying your game from everybody else's based on the dice roll. This one allows you to go to the God track here with a 0, and we'll talk about why that's important here, twice. You could go on the Njord side or the Tyr side. One of these is Zac Efron. Not Zac Efron, Zachary Levi. Although Zac Efron would be a great Viking too. He was amazing in the Iron Claw. At the bottom here, these are permanent bonuses. They add a +1 or a -1 to the die you've chosen. Now, why would you choose a -1? I don't really know. There's really no reason to ever drop a dice down. And in fact, I'm looking back. Oh, yes, there is one reason to drop a dice down. Here. So that's what these bonuses are. This one's the raid dice. You're always going to add 2 to your raid dice if you have that circled in. The reason you want a lower number is for how the God track works. As you get to these areas, you're worth 10 points here, 15 points here, 20 points here. Then you take the total for your God points at the end. So let's say we get all the way up here. So we get 40 points minus the total amounts you have drawn in here. So instead of just marking it, you're going to draw, for a 0, you'd write a 0. For a 1, you'd write a 1. So let's say we have 10 total points here of dice that we put there. You would then take 40 minus 10. So your final score for this section would be 30. Now, when you do the raid section, what you do is you're going to choose one of these 2 raid cards to raid. In the winter, which are the darker colored months here, in the brighter color months. Yes, there are 16 months in the Viking year. Fun fact, bet you didn't know that. I don't know if that's true or not. Somebody fact check me. Actually, don't, because you want to. I know you do. So the way this works is on the brown side, you're going to use the left side of the card here for the price. So this would cost 2 Vikings, 1 ship, and 3 axes. Now here's the thing. Just like in real Viking times back in the day, if you went to raid and you failed and you got a bunch of your Vikings killed, well, they don't just come home. They go to Valhalla, but that's not represented here. They just die. You lose a ship, you waste some armor and weaponry. So if you fail, you don't get this card. How do you fail? So you're going to play a little rock, paper, scissors thing to choose which one of you is going to which one. This is a 2-person setup. That's why there's only 2 cards out here. You'll then, let's say you're unchallenged, so you go here. So I've got to spend 2, 1, and 3 no matter what. So I go ahead and mark those off. And the way you mark those off is when you get them, you put in the small circle, and when you mark them off, you color in the big circle on the outside. Then this needs a 7 or better to beat. I'll roll my dice. I have a 9, so I will beat that and take this. A couple things happen here. You get points at the end of the game for the collection of these, plus these shield symbols, and we'll talk about how those score in just a moment. That's how you raid. The only other thing mid-game that happens is the Viking Sacrifice Festival. Ceremony? I don't know what you want to call it. One other thing you can do with that. Normally, mid-game, you can choose to sacrifice one of your Vikings to add a white dice at a 1 to, or add a white dice, add a +2 to your damage roll here, your raid roll, or you can re-roll the raid dice. Now you can do that as many times as you want on your turn just by scratching out Vikings, just slaughtering them, cutting them down. Like, hey man, for the greater good. The greater good. Anyway, then mid-game, you can go do the sacrifice thing at the beginning of these turns here. So 4, 8, 12, and 16. The way it works is you're going to choose how many Vikings you want to cross off, and when you do, you'll get the points for it. If you don't sacrifice anybody, it's -2 points. Up to 3 is worth 6 points. Now let's talk about in-game scoring. The yellow points here are going to be your totals for your Viking sacrifice festivals. The green points here are going to be points for this. So the more amount of X's you've crossed off during the game, you're going to get more points for. So if you've got 12 crossed off, if you've got 9 crossed off, you're going to get 12 points. Red is going to be the points for your shields. So you're going to look at the 3 different color shields. You're going to count up how many you have and get the points for that. So if you have 3 blue shields, you're going to get 1 point. If you have 8 blue shields, you're going to get 12 points. And you'll do that for yellow and red. Down here is the God points, so that's the total here that you have minus that. And then down here, you're going to get the total for the black numbers here. There are expansions where you kill monsters and get glory for that. You'll add up the points. Person with the most points wins the game. Another way to get shields, by the way, is down here. So instead of spending your 2 tents, huts, to get one of these bonuses, you could go a little higher and start spending all 4 huts there to get those 2 bonuses. It's just a way you can do it. So that is how you play roll and raid. 16 rounds. Person with the most points wins the game. All right, that is Roll and Raid. It is a game in which you're rolling and raiding. As you know, we have a rubric system. We break it down. We go concept all the way through things like rule book. We'll hit all these different things, get a total aggregated score, and give you my subjective, that's important, thoughts on Roll and Raid. So let's start with the concept. It's a 7, probably really more like a 6.5, but I don't want to rejigger the math. We've seen Roll and Raids. We've seen Vikings. Not a new concept. It's just, the reason I put it higher than just boom, solid 5, middle of the road, is because it actually handles what it wants to do really well in the roll and write system. And that's kind of hard because it's like doing pixel art, right? Really detailed pixel art in a 150 grid is tough, but it can be done really well. So it gets a 7. Board layouts an 8. Actually, I really like how everything is laid out. When you first see it, you're very confused. You're like, I don't know what does what. But once you start playing, it actually starts to make sense, helped by the rule book, which I got to ding for a little bit, but we'll get there in a minute. The mechanics they're an 8. I mean, it's a roll and write, but I like how the stuff combos. And I really like the production of resources system. You're not crossing stuff out with every dice roll. You're counting with that dice. And maybe you bump this section up versus this section. I really like that. To me, that's a cool concept. Art direction is a 6.5. Here's why. Because the yellow dice can be used for 2 different things with the same symbol, and boy, that drives me crazy. Because you can use it up here to produce on this section, or you can use it to get yourself Vikings. That alone really hurts it for me for art direction, because some things just don't make sense of what you can do with them, right? Use this dice for this, and the little extra free dice are very tiny, so you may forget you had that. So 6.5 on art direction. Art, it's a 7. I mean, It's a roll and write, but it looks nice, right? The map looks nice, and it's got a more eye-friendly version on the back where if you think it looks a little cluttered from the art, well, you can just look at the back that's a little more demure. Art, 7. Gameplay, 8.5. Really like this for a roll and write. Not all roll and writes are created equal, and this one is really well done. I really like what it does. I like the phases. I like how many turns it is. I like how simple it is. The only thing I'd have difficulty with is remembering which dice I use. Because you're choosing 2 of them, and maybe some of them have the same number, and you go, well, did I use that for production? Did I use that to get this? So, rulebook's a 7. I don't have an English rulebook. That's not why I'm giving it a 7. I'm giving it a 7 because there are some things that kind of just get scattered out amongst the rulebook that make it a little more difficult. All in all, that comes to a 7.4. We'll round up to a 7.5 for roll and write. Really enjoyed this as a roll and write. And as you know, I don't like all roll and writes. I don't dislike all roll and writes. I just like the ones I really like, and roll and write is a game I like a lot. So, make sure to check it out, Roll and Raid. I'm Brian Drake here on the Dice Tower. Make sure to follow us on X and Instagram at Dice Tower Brian. And also, check out the new fall offerings coming soon to Dicetowerstore.com to get your amazing Dice Tower swag, as many of you did at East in the Retreat and online. Till next time, we'll see you.
Hey everybody, thanks for watching another video from the Dice Tower. Hey, you want to learn more about us, communicate with us? We have a Facebook group, we have a Discord channel, lots of different ways to get involved with the Dice Tower. You can find that in our Linktree link below. So just click that, it will take you and you can communicate with us on Facebook, join our Facebook groups. There's lots of cool things that you can find and become part of the Dice Tower. Thanks so much for watching. I'm Tom Vassell.